The most damaging material is yet to come, because Yasir Qadhi said something in his interview that has become really a signature piece for Yasir Qadhi. Your standard narrative has holes in it. What narratives? Standard Islamic narrative has holes in it. That's where he says it. You want to see it? Stay tuned.
Welcome to Events and History, where we explore the origins, teachings, and historical development of Islam with a fact-based, analytical approach. For many centuries, Muslims have been told the Quran is perfectly preserved, letter for letter and word for word. Imams, sheikhs, and top Islamic scholars have preached it over and over again. But now, the music has changed. Islam's own leading scholars now admits that the Quran was never preserved. In this gripping video, Dr. Yasir Qadhi, in an interview with Muhammad Hijab, reveals startling truths that challenge centuries of belief. Watch as Al Fadi and Dr. J. Smith dissects Dr. Qadhi's interview and what it means for the reliability of the Quran.
Welcome back, everybody. This is Al Fadi, and with me here in our studio is our dear brother, Dr. J. Smith, and we have been taking a deep dive into that damaging interview that took place on June 8th, 2020, between Dr. Yasir Qadhi and Muhammad Hijab. And we have basically dissected few parts of that interview last time. We raised a number of alarming questions that emanated from that particular interview, and we are going to continue along the same line by raising even more questions concerning the issue that was raised in that particular interview. As I mentioned, with me here in studio to unpack all of that for us is our dear brother, Dr. J. Smith. Dr. J, welcome back.
Thank you. Thank you.
So last time you asked at least 6 amazing questions, of course, that logically will result from just reviewing that interview. If you'd like to comment on those and add more to it.
We're going to add 4 of them because I think we need to unpack. A lot of people have seen that interview, and I've heard many people come back and say, can you help me understand what the significance? It seems so damaging, but I didn't understand an awful lot of what he was saying. So let's continue with those. Here's number 7. He talked about the fact that that Muslims have a respect for the Quran. And there are certain things that they don't go beyond. They ask up questions and then they stop, and there's a red line. You can see there's a picture there. That's Yasir Qadhi pointing to the red line. You don't cross that line. Muslims do not cross the line. And that's the respect they have. And that's what he's grown up with until he went to Yale University. Remember, Yale University is in the West. He's from Houston. Yale University is in the Northeast. He had never heard these kind of questions, and now he was exposed to Western academia. And Muhammad Hijab asked him, well, is this where you had your crisis of faith? This is well known that he went through a crisis of faith in 1995. And he said, no, it wasn't really a crisis of faith. It was a crisis of knowledge. In other words, I didn't really understand. But then he quickly went into almost a mantra. Did you notice that mantra? I'm absolutely persuaded that it's the word of God. I'm absolutely persuaded that it is preserved. He went through almost a litany of things that he's memorized, almost to persuade himself there on camera that he has no doubt that this is the word of God. However, he didn't know how to answer these questions when he got to Yale University. This calls him a crisis of knowledge. So let's move on. That's what's happening there. Here, unlike in the West, he said, and he talked about the West referring to himself living in Houston, going to Yale University, versus the East, and he's pointing to hijab. He says, you in the East, he kept on saying you in the East, it's different for you. You're in a different world. Here in the West, I've got to deal with academia. I can't make statements like you can make on YouTube. You can say whatever you want. There are no red lines here in the West. You have red lines. I don't. I have to work without any red lines. I've got to come up with some type of answer. So he was admitting that there in that interview. And then he went on and said, the problem is that you, and he kind of pointed to Muhammad Hijab, yeah. Your narrative, your standard narrative has holes in it. Wow, when he said that.
Yeah. In other words, he's saying if you go to the East, there are holes, but you cannot explain them. In the West, at least, you try to explain them.
You tried to explain, yeah, but you notice in the entire interview, he did not explain them. How many times did Muhammad Hijab, okay, since you can explain it, you're in the West, here's the blank Musaf, which one are you going to write?
You have to say, Muhammad Hijab's question was excellent and brilliant.
And it took 4 years for him to get at that. He'd been stewing. He had been asked, starting from that day in 2016. I can't say that that was the first time he'd ever heard that argument, because it's obvious to me that when he asked all those people to come and he would explain it to them, he was not able to. That's why he had to come to Yasir Qadhi. Yasir Qadhi is the world authority on this. He should know the answer. And he did say, this should be pretty simple. Which one is it? How many times did he say this should be a yes and no answer? Did you hear him say that? So let's continue on. Well, Western academics, Yasir Qadhi says, have jumped leaps and bounds on this issue. They've gone way ahead in the last 100 years. And there you can see a slide of the Western academics on the left versus the poor Muslims on the right, and there's a red line. See the red line between them? And
Right.
there's Yasir Qadhi looking at both different categories. He doesn't even know he's standing in the West, but he's having to try to answer and give sense to those in the East, and the ones in the East are sitting there with big eyes because they're waiting for an answer. They're not getting any answer. They're not getting any answer for Yasir Qadhi. Why? Well, they look at the rest of us, those in the West, like emperor with no clothes. You know the story about the emperor little clothes, the little boy
Right.
that's watching this emperor going no clothes, and he's the only one that explains why he doesn't have any clothes on. Well, that's exactly what they're saying to all the other Muslims. Guys, you don't have an answer for this. And that's why he was admitting that he's part of that group himself. I've never lectured on this subject, he said. Nor will I ever lecture on it except in my class. Take my class, we'll do a deep dive. To me, that's a huge admission right there.
In other words, I want to tell you secretly, behind closed doors, what I think.
Exactly. And in 25 years, now he's talking 25 years from 2020, that would make it 1995. That's when he got his doctorate. So from the time he got his doctorate on this very subject at Yale University, he's never done a lecture on it.
But wouldn't that interview would have been the perfect platform for him to explain it to everybody who's watching? Why should you take his class? For what purpose? It's almost like sounded like I'm all about money. You know, it came across as if that way. I'm sure that's not what he meant. He meant take my class so that I can explain it to you. But why can't you explain it to everybody?
Because it should not be brought up in public. Yeah. Boy, did he come down hard on that. Take the camera off, turn it off. Don't even continue this. Afterwards, I will explain it to you. I would love to have been there as a fly in the wall to see how would he explain it, if they even did go into this afterwards. Because he does come up with an answer when push comes to shove. Nonetheless, at this point, he was saying, I have never talked about it. I never want to talk about it. Please don't ask me this question. Turn the camera off. This is the most difficult problem for scholars in the last 1,000 years. Al-Jazari, listen, he spent 80 different articles writing about it, and he could come to any conclusion.
Dr. J explains and demonstrates how the Dr. Yasir Qadhi tried very hard to evade the question about Quran preservation. He even rebuked Muhammad Hijab for bringing it public, stating that it is never a topic that should be discussed in the public. He even pointed to a classic scholar, Al-Jazari, who wrote 80 different articles on the topic without coming to any conclusion. But Hijab pressed him on the question, as he needed an answer for his own audience. He finally succumbed and made the most famous statement in Islamic dawah history. The standard Islamic narrative has holes in it. The traditional understanding cannot explain some of the questions that are now being poked. He went further to say that the Islamic narrative is like an emperor with no clothes because secular scholars won't leave it alone and will keep poking it.
If he can't come to a conclusion, why do you expect me to come to a conclusion? Please, don't ask me, what should be written on this blank Musaf. He pulled back, and he even said, you're pushing me, stop this. You saw that. Don't ask me for an answer right now. You're not going to get an answer. If I haven't given an answer in 25 years, why do you expect me to do so in an hour-and-a-half interview? Nonetheless, Muhammad Hijab was persistent. He knew that he needed an answer. He wanted an answer.
Right. He insisted on giving him that blank Quran.
So finally he put his hand out once more. He put his hand out right there in the end. And he asked them, please, if I give you a piece of paper, a blank piece of paper, and I gave you a pen, which one are you going to write?
So notice the question. He's almost saying, are you really telling me all of these Qur'at are the same preserved Quran, or one of them would be? That was his question.
He wanted to know. And what did Yasir Qadhi say? Look at the little picture on the right. They're all the Quran. Just dive into them. They're all the Quran. A little bit of this. He said, it won't be all of Hafs. It may be some Qalun, some Qisai.
An eclectic Quran.
Some Warsh. It was just a little bit of this. You can see like a witch with her brew. She's just mixing it up in her pot. And what comes out is the Quran we have today.
It's a pity. Dr. Yasir Qadhi literally threw the Quran under the bus. If the Quran is doubtful, what else is? Maybe there was no prophet who received any Quran from Allah. Let's hear what Dr. J have to say about this butchering of the Quran. He must be a very fulfilled man now. His 25 years of work, and Islamic scholars have finally admitted it.
What he didn't know, and see, this is what most Muslims don't know, and this is what I'm going to say to you Muslims. What Yasir Qadhi still doesn't know is what we know. What Muhammad Hijab still doesn't know is what we know. If you're going to take a little bit of each one of these, there are 93,000 differences in these different Qurans. Just between the Hafs and the Warsh are 5,000 different Qurans. 5,000 different meanings. With all the 30 that he's swimming in, and he's saying a little bit of all of them, all of these 30, we go up to 93,000. Every time there's one letter, anytime there's one word, anytime there's one phrase, you change the meaning. Anytime you change the meaning, you change the theology, or you change the doctrine, or you change the practice. Folks, you can't get away from it. No wonder he didn't want to talk about this. No wonder he said, turn the camera off. No wonder he said, this is the most difficult problem for the last 1,000 years. Now, let me tell you what happened after this. This was on June 8th. In the next 2 weeks, I would go up, and I went to both their sites because they had the whole interview, all hour-and-a-half interview on both Yasir Qadhi's YouTube site, which is almost around 500,000 as well, and Muhammad Hijab's. And I started looking at the comments. I love to look at the comments. And there were hundreds of comments on both sites. And they were angry. The Muslims were really angry. You're the one that has told us every time that we talk about the Quran, not one letter, not one word has been changed. It is you that has quoted this. It is you that we have trusted. I am now leaving Islam, and my blood will be on your shoulders. Hundreds of Muslims were writing this in the comments. They were angry for a good reason, because they had been duped. All their lives they had been duped. And here is someone with the stature of Yasir Qadhi, one of the leading authorities on the Quran, who got his doctorate at Yale University on this very subject, admitting that there were many, a little bit of this, a little bit of that. You just add them together, and what has come out, we can be sure, is the preserved Quran that is in heaven. And that's all he needed to say. Once he had done that, I started clapping. Folks, within 2 weeks, there were so many Muslims that had left Islam that had put their comments there on both channels that both Muhammad Hijab and Yasir Qadhi had to shut down all comments. They stopped all comments within 2 weeks.
Right.
And that wasn't bad enough. Within 2 months, by August, they deleted this interview from both their channels. What does that tell you?
It tells me that, first, they recognize the damage they've done. Number two, they cannot answer that damage, because during these 3 months, they could have came back and did another show, or each one of them tried to explain further, took the time to digest what took place, try to help the people looking at the comments just like you did. But obviously, Muhammad Hijab doesn't have the answer. He even didn't get the answer that he was looking for. And Yasir Qadhi didn't want to take another deep dive. He recognized the damage that he already caused, the attacks probably that came against him, and so on and so forth.
Yeah, there was so much anger until this day. I'm not even going to tell you what Yasir Qadhi did on November of 2020. He put out a 90-minute video attacking me, attacking David Wood, and attacking Dr. Dan Brubaker. Why in the world did he attack Dr. Dan Brubaker, who had not said one word about this? David and I were putting this all over the internet. So was Hatun. Right. We were all at the forefront of this. I can understand why he wanted to attack us. But Dan Brubaker? We're going to talk about that next.
And Dr. Brubaker, in his kind attitude, went to him and tried to dialogue with him as well.
Yeah.
And
he called us ultra-crepidarians, and it's called the ultra-crepidarian video. It's a great video. If you have a chance, go look at it. It's so much fun. You can see we just by continuing to talk about this interview, got so much damage. But we need to go on to the even more damaging material, and that's next.
We thank Dr. J. Smith for all the work he has done exposing Islam. The fruits are now coming. Peace to the world.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone. Until next time, have a blessed day. Thank you for watching this video. Be sure to like and subscribe to our channel, Sira International, and click on the bell so that you receive notifications whenever we publish a new video or go live. I would also like to appeal to you to consider becoming a Patreon patron by clicking the link right below. By doing so, you can give towards the production of these videos. There are also other options for you where you can give to our channel. I thank you from the bottom of my heart.